Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you, Renee. It's my pleasure to be here representing the national leadership of the Committees of Correspondence for Democracy and Socialism, presenting this report today. It was a collective effort, and so it's going to be in two parts and not terribly long. The first part is called Crisis and Opportunity. And the second part is a review of our organization and what it looks like at this moment. And I think it will inform what our tasks are ahead. In preparation for this opening report to our 6th National Convention, we reviewed the work of our last convention, which was held in Chicago just 3 years ago. We pointed to the, quote, unilateral and hegemonic drive of the current Bush regime, replete with incalculable danger for world peace and security. That analysis was coupled with an inseparable domestic crisis, job loss, wage stagnation, skyrocketing health care costs, environmental degradation, undermining of traditional constitutional rights, mounting attacks on immigrants, and what Manning Marable, one of our former co-chairs and now a member of our advisory committee, has called the new racial domain of mass unemployment, mass disenfranchisement, and mass incarceration. That was 3 years ago. And as we know, such conditions have persisted and worsened. From the early fall of 2008 to the present, the country has been in the grip of the deepest economic crisis since the Great Depression. The trigger for the crisis was the despicable greed of the banking and investment industries, abetted by Republican and Democratic administrations, that shredded all financial regulation and opened the door to crooked mortgages that cost the homes of millions, and reckless financial practices that sent all of world capitalism into a tailspin. Our new statement of the goals and principles of our organization, and many of you who are new to this organization and hearing this for the first time, we will be adopting a new document of our goals and principles, which has not been revised since we were first founded in 1992 at our first conference held here in the Bay Area in Berkeley, California. And we went on to found the organization 2 years later in Chicago. That founding document is called Toward the Democratic and Socialist Future. So the new document that we'll be discussing later on, it makes clear that the present economic crisis was driven by the basic contradictions of capitalism itself. Yes, it was Wall Street's greed that has brought about the crisis, but the underlying reason is capitalism's basic drive to exploit labor for profit, aggravated by years of attack on our trade unions and decent wage standards, huge tax giveaways to the super rich, the systemic dissolution and destruction of much of the country's industrial base, ruthless exploitation of immigrants, and continuing racial and gender disparities in wages and living conditions. All that contributed to deepening the vast disparities in the distribution of wealth, forcing millions to survive on debt until the edifice came crashing down. The result is escalating unemployment that falls heaviest on already oppressed nationalities. The crisis cuts across many social and even class lines, causing incalculable pain and insecurity for millions. Unemployment of 25 to 30% officially in cities like Detroit, my hometown, rapidly increasing homelessness, a healthcare crisis with 50 million without health insurance, a disastrous educational system, and the collapse of essential state and local services. So our revised goals and principles statement for discussion at this convention points to three seamlessly related crises. An economic crisis embracing healthcare, education, housing, and social services. An environmental crisis, and a crisis of imperial interventions and war. The continuing discharge of carbon has now reached the point of a most acute danger to the environment. At this juncture, the power and recklessness of carbon-emitting capitalist industries, especially military industries, threaten to scuttle the mildest of efforts to stem a climate catastrophe. At the same time, continuing wars in Afghanistan and Iraq are killing scores every day, increasing the anger and estrangement against foreign forces, while the drain of resources on the U.S. economy aggravates the economic crisis. The inseparability of these crises mandates that the left help advance an understanding of these issues and of their interconnectedness. All the result of the basic drive of capitalism for profit, regardless of the human cost. That understanding is needed to unify activists and to strengthen the emerging progressive majority. The multifaceted nature of the crisis requires the consolidation and forward movement of the progressive majority. We say this is a time of both crisis and opportunity because the crisis itself fosters an urgent need to unite the left, win the center forces, and defeat the right. That strategy, embodied in the progressive majority, was underscored at our last convention. In its opening report, we said, the essential strategic goal that has been at the core of the Committees of Correspondence's outlook is the building of a progressive majority to decisively defeat the right, to make the realization of that majority the objective of the coming 2006 and 2008 elections, and to lay the foundation for a thoroughgoing change in the country's domestic and foreign policies. The 2006 and 2008 elections indeed confirmed the emergence of a progressive majority embodied in the movement that rallied around the historic candidacy of Barack Obama. That movement was composed of important sectors of the trade union movement, the African American people, Latinos, and other oppressed nationalities, women's organizations, gay rights activists, and a vital upsurge of youth participation. At this political moment, that majority urgently needs to be focused and consolidated to fight back against powerful forces pressing the Obama administration. That point was made, I think, very well yesterday in our discussion about the need to focus and to consolidate the advances that were made in 2008 in the elections. And I should say that many of us in this room here were very much a part of those struggles that brought about the victory in 2008 in our trade unions, in our peace and justice organizations, in our women's organizations, as we just said. So I just wanted everybody to be clear that we were very much a part of that.